Hello and good afternoon. Are we ready to get started?
Yes, and your slides look great.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you everybody so much for choosing to spend your lunch hour at the Renewable Energy Summit as we explore Energy 101 together, looking at how energy shapes our lives. So please use the chat box that's at the bottom of the screen so you can engage with other summit attendees, and we'll actually be using that throughout this bit of time that we have together, so I can learn a little bit more about you and you guys can learn a little bit more about each other. And then the Q&A box is there so that you can ask questions to myself as well, and to those who are hosting us. And of course, the summit would not be possible without the generous support of the summit sponsors. So thank you to all the sponsors for these great talks that we've been enjoying yesterday and today. So Wisconsin's K-12 energy education program is housed on the campus of UW Stevens Point. And KEEP itself is supported by the 6 publicly traded utilities operating here in Wisconsin. The vision of KEEP is communities making informed energy choices now and for a sustainable future. And we achieve this by having training and recognition for K-12 teachers across the state. We also have a library of lending resources, so actual tools for measuring energy and energy efficiency, as well as lending library of books. And we're developing resources for students in grades 6 through 12 to explore energy careers, and as well as supporting student advocacy when it comes to energy. And you can learn more about our programs and what my colleagues do at keepprogram.org. So before we get started here, I'd like to find out a little bit about you, and you guys can learn about each other. I'm going to start a poll here asking you which sustainability community that you begin with, that you belong to. So it's open. You can select more than one, and we'll take about, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute to for you guys to participate in it. And as we go forward, I'll explore what each of these communities is about very briefly, but you'll get an opportunity to learn more as well. Great, we'll take about 5 more seconds and I'll end the polling here so we can take a look at the results together. All right, so let's see who's in our audience here. So a lot of you are gonna find out that you probably already live in a sustainability community of some sort. So glad to see that, and welcome to colleagues all around as well. I'll stop sharing the results and we'll go forward here. All righty. So I'm going to, over the next few slides, I'm going to just share with you some maps. And unfortunately, they aren't all layered on one map because we haven't brought all these points together yet. But in Wisconsin, we have 150 energy independent communities that reach about 60% of Wisconsin's population. Looking at from the business community standpoint, the Wisconsin DNR has 63 participants in 180 locations across Wisconsin that are green tier participants. And still staying within the business community, there's the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. I saw some of you are here, welcome. Looking at our institutes of higher education, so the technical colleges, UW campuses, as well as the private colleges and universities in Wisconsin. Of the 52 of those, 19 of them are members of the American Association for Sustainability in Higher Education, where not only are they measuring and addressing greenhouse gas emissions, but they also have, as part of their core mission, integration sustainability education into the curriculum as well as community practices. And then looking at our K-12 communities, this is a map of Wisconsin's 2,260 K-12 schools across the state. Of those, about a third of them are registered with Green and Healthy Schools Wisconsin, which is a partnership between the DNR and the DPI. And of those, either they're registered with Green and Healthy Schools or they work with a Green and Healthy Schools partner. So really sustainability is all around us. And our moderator here, Lauren, is largely responsible, I think, for the map we're seeing here. Renew Wisconsin has recently published a map of the renewable energy installations here in Wisconsin. And I believe she's going to share the link to that for you to explore afterwards. But it's a searchable map, and I think is a great place to begin to see how the energy landscape is transforming here in Wisconsin. So over the last few slides, we've seen that most of Wisconsin already lives in a sustainability aware, if not practicing, community. And so there are lots of efforts that have been launched in several sectors, from business to education. But as a society, we know that we find ourselves in an accelerating climate crisis. So what I'd like to suggest to you over maybe the next half hour or so that we have together, that we have the opportunity to adopt certain mindsets as a society, as individuals in our homes, as employees of our companies, our agencies, and as citizens of our communities, from the local to the global, on how we approach and learn and address energy. And we'll be doing this, excuse me, and looking at three different mindsets. One is addressing and learning about energy as a societal concern. I know in education and K-12, energy is often taught and seen as being the purview of science, but energy is all around us, and we're going to explore that actually in the next slide. And then after we take a look at energy as a societal concern, I'm going to suggest that there's a lot we don't see that we should be looking for. It's there. We just have to open our eyes and notice it. And I'd like to end for all of us with a message of hope, of finding hope in what we do see around us. So in our next slide here, we're going to be doing a chat storm. And if you've done one before, that's great. And if you haven't, we're going to learn about it together. So do not hit the enter key until you are directed to do so, is the first direction I'm giving you here. But in one word, think about it first. How do you see energy being used in society? And we'll have the opportunity to share this with each other. You'll go to the bottom of your screen to the chat and click on the chat box. It will open up the chat box if it's not already open. And then you can type your one word. Don't hit enter yet. I'll give you about 2 or 3 seconds to finish typing your word. And at the count of 3, we'll all hit enter and we'll have a cascade of your words. 1, 2, 3, go.
All right, we're seeing a bunch. We're seeing essential, support, education, thoughtless, recklessly, equitably, needs, wasted, resiliency, good, transportation, luxury, centralized, and that summed up most of them.
Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. Well, I'm so glad, and I'm glad to see that through your feedback, we're seeing that energy touches all aspects of society. So I'm going to be showing you a visualization, or a really short 40-second video here. My guess is most of you are going to be mesmerized by it. Do not try to write down the URL. It will be shared with you in the chat after we watch it together. But here we're going to see the transformation of energy from the 1850s to the present day over time. So we watch biomass. We start out with lots of biomass. Coal starts to come in. The bands of gray at the far right show our increasing energy usage, and watch how electricity at the very top starts to expand as we go into the post-World War II era. Sweet. I watch this over and over again, and I hope you'll take some time to explore this website that's shared to you. There is information about it and where the data was derived from, insights that can be drawn from it, and you can see kind of the top of some other graphs that reside below it as well. So take the time to see how energy has been used through time in US society. And of course, Wisconsin is no different from the rest of the country. Our energy use is divided fairly evenly between or among residential, transportation, industry, and commerce, with a small sliver for agriculture in there as well. And I'd really like to challenge sort of the paradigm that's been put out there, that we as individuals are responsible for how our energy is used in our homes, but it's kind of like the rest of the pie is often forgotten about. And in the rest of this presentation, I'd like for all of us to think together about how we use energy as individuals and as society for transportation, as well as in these other sectors that drive or are part of our economy as well. Because even if we don't work in industry or commerce, we still have an impact there. And of course, how we use energy has global implications. This is not a talk about climate change by any means whatsoever, but it is important to keep the Keeling curve in mind as well, because as we've increased our consumption of energy, we've also increased the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And the consequences of this are broad and far-reaching, of course, across the globe. But here in Wisconsin, one of the societal effects that we can already measure, that I'm experiencing right now, right before this talk, I took a walk down to Lake Winnebago and there's just snow dripping off of the roofs and so on. But and this really beautiful data set from the University of Wisconsin, ice cover on Lake Mendota has decreased on average about 34 days from the beginning of the data set in the mid 1800s to the current day. And we see the same trend across lakes in the Northern Hemisphere. So we know about, as a group attending this meeting, we probably are familiar with greenhouse gas accumulations and the possible effects of climate change. But I also just want to suggest that we take this opportunity that COVID has offered us, that the society at large has been increasing its data literacy, or if not the literacy, at least the comfort level in hearing words that have to do with statistics and data. Because if we're going to tackle climate change, we're going to be using that same vocabulary that has really affected people's lives. When we talk about positivity rates, and when we looking at the slope of curves, that this type of vocabulary that society is gaining is one that we can also then employ to start taking some more serious measures when it comes to tackling climate change. So here we see that rate of, we want to flatten the curve that we're seeing in this graph here. Our colleagues at the Wisconsin Energy Institute offer workshops where you can explore the En-ROADS climate solutions simulation. And I'll just give you a snippet of it, and I encourage you to reach out to them and set up workshops for your workplace or for yourself to learn more about it. And Lauren will share the website for En-ROADS after I give you a quick peek into what this looks like and learning about energy. But this is our trajectory for what the increase in global temperature might look like by the end of the century. So an increase of 6.5 degrees Fahrenheit if we go with measures unchanged. So, but there are sliders, and if this were active, I could bend that curve for you by sliding these little black circles right and left. So there's energy supply. We could decrease coal, we could increase renewables, and so on, trying to bend the curve, flatten the curve for increasing global temperatures. So I did that, and I grabbed the screen for you. And in this scenario, we've increased renewable installation, and largely because when we subsidize or have tax incentives, we find an increase in installations, a small carbon price, and there are other things that have been slid around. But I'd like to draw your attention to the green wedge there that represents renewables. A significant a significant effect is going to be gained by so we'll have a significant improvement in the trajectory of climate change effects with an increase in renewables, as well as having other measures in place like carbon tax, which is not what this is about here. But thinking about the renewables, and many of you have probably seen this graph in other talks, either here or in other events as well. Over the last 10 years, we've seen a precipitous decline in the price of installed solar capacity around the country. So the price has dropped by about 75% between 2010 and 2020, and seen an almost exponential rise in the installed capacity that we have. So renewables are definitely part of the solution to our looming climate crisis. So for the last few slides, we've been looking at the big picture of energy. And I'd like to invite you over the next few slides to contemplate your personal energy usage. And a great place to start with that is in exploring your own utility bills. So I live in Oshkosh, where I'm in the Wisconsin Public Service Territory and a customer of theirs. So not only do you as a utility customer have access to your bill that maybe comes in the mail or you get in your email, but when you log into the website, there's a ton more data in there than just the dollar value. I encourage you to get in there, and the utilities are constantly updating the platforms that their customers can be using as well. There's a lot of information that can be drawn out from just looking at your utility bill and understanding how your home or your business is using energy. And even if you're not the energy manager for your building, in the case of a business, take the time and learn this, because it's really, really important. And there are people out there to help you. But when it comes to the residential, the utilities also have information on how to read the different graphs that are on there. And at KEEP, we provide training to teachers on how to incorporate the same things that we're exploring here today into the classroom. So your students should have exposure to this during their middle and high school education. So just a quick peek at my household's utility. The red line here shows us the heating degree days. So those are the days that are cold outside, where we would presumably be running the furnace. And then our cooling degree days are days where it's hot outside and we need to have our air conditioner running. And I see a really high peak over here in red. And I thought back, I'm like, wow, why was it so cold? Why did the utilities think we needed to? And sure enough, that lined up with the 2019 polar vortex that we had. So it was very cold outside. Another place that I noticed just looking at my own data, and as you explore your data, you'll see something different. We have these similar peaks here for cooling degree days, but my actual usage in August of last year compared to August of 2019 was really different. And think about it for a second. Any idea why there might be more? The answer to that is we had COVID and we were all in the house, and I typically don't run the AC in the summertime, but with all of us in the house, we definitely had the AC on so that we could just tolerate each other. So lots to explore in your utility bill. And once you get to know your home, you might also be curious to compare your home to other homes of the same age that are in a similar climate, similar size. The EPA has the Energy Star Home Advisor, where you can enter the data from your utility bill that you just explored and compare how your home is performing to other homes along a lot of different areas that you might be interested in exploring. As well, if you are a customer of a utility that participates in Focus on Energy, every 3 years, I think it is, or maybe 2 years, you can get a free energy savings pack. So it's free in that you've prepaid for it through your utility bill. And it's you can get things that will help you be more energy efficient in your house. So don't miss out on that opportunity. And if you're ready to start transitioning to clean carbon in your home, but not quite ready to to install solar, or maybe you live in an apartment that you don't have that authority to do it, or whatever the case is. You do have the choice to purchase green energy from all 6 of the utilities offer, and some of the municipal utilities do as well. In some parts of the state, there's the opportunity to participate in solar gardens. So that might be an option to you depending on where in the state you live. And for many of us, installing our own electrical generation is something that maybe is aspirational at this point, but as we saw from the data, is going to become increasingly likely. So as we think about our utility bills, there's something else I would like to draw your attention to that maybe you've overlooked on your bills. But look at it carefully and you'll see that 3% of your electric service charges are collected for Wisconsin low income assistance fee. This is something that, I mean, I have to be honest with you, I'd really never paid close attention to, but in my current position in KEEP and with the increasing awareness of inequities in society, have begun to explore some more. The energy burden is unevenly falls onto low-income communities as well as Black and Brown communities here in Wisconsin, across the Midwest and the United States. The nonprofit Energy Efficiency for All has done research into this, where they find that these communities are often having to make sacrifices when it comes to healthcare, to education, as well as just nutrition for their families, just so that they can afford to pay their utility bill. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to understand who has access to energy and how much it affects them. And again, our colleagues at the Wisconsin Energy Institute are offering actually a workshop on February 23rd, Energy and Housing Justice. I think that Lauren is going to be sharing the URL so that you can sign up for that and attend it. I've already registered, and I hope that if you're here with me today, that I might see you there as well, attending, and all of us together learning more and taking action so that we have a more just society. So as we transition to, here, we'll do another chat storm. Don't hit enter. What is something you wish to know about energy or you wish others knew? So again, you'll open up the chat, put your one word in. I'll give you a few moments to consider what you wish you knew about energy. Right, and if you haven't hit enter, 1, 2, 3, go ahead and hit enter. And if you'd like to read those words as they're coming in.
Yep, here they come. We've got careers, grids, options, storage, passive, best, efficiency, opportunities, economical, law, and that covers the general ones that are coming in. Okay,
sweet. So hopefully I'll touch on some of those. Of course, I had no way to look in the crystal ball and see what would be coming my way. But I'll be touching on some of that, talking about making the invisible visible here. So I know I shared this map before, but this is a map of Wisconsin's renewable energy installations. So I ask you, if you explore the map, but if you see renewable energy installations, don't just make a mental note like, oh, cool, there's the solar panel. I hadn't noticed that before. But share that with other people, point it out, normalize renewable energy. This is not some futuristic ideal. It's happening around us. We need to talk about it and point it out in our communities when we see it. Yes, I do love maps, sorry. But there's some great resources for all of us to really begin to learn a whole lot more about our energy infrastructure as well. So the Energy Information Administration, I think I got that right, has some fantastic maps. And this map doesn't look like much. It's just Wisconsin with a bunch of blobs and lines on it, showing the power plants, pipelines, and transmission lines. But then if I can zoom in on it, which conveniently I have done for you here, I'm zooming in on my neighborhood. So I live really close to the mouth of the Fox River as it drains into Lake Winnebago. And sure enough, I can see the transmission lines that run right there parallel to the railroad lines operated by Canadian National. And hey, and there's the substation that I see as I go to the grocery store or take my kid to high school when school is in session. So explore that. There is so much on that map that helps you really understand the energy infrastructure across the country, but also you can really drill down to the community level. And as we think about energy in our community and what that transition might look like, this will be our last chat storm here, but go ahead and you can just hit enter when you're ready. But what do the dots on this map represent, do you think? I'll give you a few seconds here, and then I'll have Lauren read out the answers.
All right, the first few are EV chargers, renewables, hope, information, natural gas lines, renewable sites, grid stations, potential renewable energy installations, and biogas facilities.
Cool. Well, some of you were spot on. So this is a map of the charging stations across the state where if you have an EV, electric car, you can go plug in to charge it. And I'm just beginning to learn a bit more about electric transportation. I mean, I guess we all are. I mean, it's a newer technology as well. But I do want to share with you some things that I've recently learned that as part of making the invisible visible and what is coming our way. So in September 2019, Amazon announced that they're going to be electrifying their 100,000 vehicle fleet of delivery vehicles. And then in February of this year, or last year, thank goodness that's done. In February of last year, Jeff Bezos announced the Bezos Earth Fund, where he pledged $10 billion towards initiatives that will aggressively address climate change. Among the first recipients of some of those monies was the World Resources Institute that's going to be tackling two initiatives. And one of them is the electrification of the US school bus fleet, which accounts for about 450,000 school buses. So the change is upon us, people. And so pay attention to these things as they're happening. Find the opportunity to become part of the conversation in how this happens, that this transition happens in a just way, that we're building up the workforce that's going to be necessary to maintain the infrastructure that's going to fuel these transitions, as well as maintain the many different types of vehicles that are going to be out there. So thinking about electrifying school buses, what about energy in our schools? We all live in a community that has schools here in Wisconsin, if you're tuning in from Wisconsin. And whether or not you have a student at home, do know that that KEEP provides professional development and training for teachers so that they can be teaching about energy in the classroom. So even if you don't have a student in your household, but if you are an energy professional and you love what you're doing, consider sharing your enthusiasm and your passion by being a guest speaker at schools in your community, or a mentor for a high school student or tech student, college student who is interested in a career in energy. And I think for all of us who are in the energy industry, if we could share our enthusiasm, many of us, like, we get it, but we need to let other people know how exciting this is. Like, we are future casters in many ways. So our KEEP curriculum is also aligned with the Wisconsin standards for environmental literacy and sustainability. So energy does not stand aside and separate from sustainability and society at all. It is integrated totally into that. And beyond your school community, what are the other communities that you live in and that you are a part of? And I invite you to think about how you might get involved in those communities and elevate the energy conversation within them. Or if you're new to energy and you're just, you know it's important, but you want to learn more, getting involved in these communities is a great way for you to learn more, because you're going to find other people serving on these committees who are more knowledgeable than you, and you'll learn from them. And that was my pathway. I'm trained as a plant ecologist. So I stumbled into this through the fact that I absolutely love the plant communities that I work on and want to protect them, and they're imperiled by climate change. So it's kind of circuitous, but here I am. So green teams at work. Does your employer have green teams? A lot of times they're just addressing recycling. I say, let's add to that conversation energy. What are the practices for the users of buildings and how they get to and from work? Becoming part of that green team, or creating one if you're employer, or if you are the employer, if you don't have one. As well, looking into your community. We saw at the beginning here that we have 150 energy independent communities in Wisconsin. So exploring, if you live in one, you might not even know. And if you're in a community that that has a commitment, but maybe has not kept its focus on the commitment, that might be your opportunity to re-engage with citizens in your community as well, joining a sustainability board or starting one and contributing to the conversation in that way. All right, so we've seen a lot of different bits of data. I've given you some homework to explore, or resources to share that would help somebody who is energy curious and learning more. I'd like to wrap up here with a message of hope that goes from the global to the local scale. This graph is one of great hope for me. The dark gray bars represent coal plants that were retired, but that were not repurposed for another fossil fuel for creating more, for distributing energy here. And we know from the visualization that we saw that energy usage has not been declining. So what is replacing these coal-fired power plants? We can see here that this is at the global scale, the renewable energy installations from the 2000s to the current year, with projections out to 2025. So renewable energy is what is replacing those coal-fired power plant retirements. In fact, if we look at worldwide, we have a huge increase in the installation of solar. So taking a look at that, we have a 15 times increase between 2010 and 2019 in the installed solar capacity. Narrowing down, or coming down, focusing in on Wisconsin more specifically, we have energy independent communities that are ahead of schedule in meeting their goals. Just last year, Bayfield County achieved 100% carbon-free electricity for county buildings. And they did this through a combination of approaches. 43% of their electricity is locally generated through solar community gardens or rooftop installations. And the balance is being purchased in carbon-free electricity from their utilities. So good things are happening, and we have reason to be hopeful. Looking at schools, because this is what I work on, we have our first net zero school in Wisconsin just came online this year, in the school year in August. It's in the Oregon School District and is powered by a 646 kilowatt array that is on the roof. So we might not always be able to see, we can't always make visible things that are actually invisible to us that are on the ground. But how are buildings operate and how our cars operate, how our industries operate is only part of the challenge that we have, part of the solution. There's also huge hope to be derived from the people who occupy the buildings, the policies that are employed or that are adopted at the many different scales of government. So the occupancy of buildings, the operation of vehicles can have a huge effect as well. And I'm going to end here with an example of Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. Actually, the whole theme of this talk was came out of a mistaken email I sent to Jenny Brinker, who maybe is in the audience here, but she's on the faculty at NWTC where she teaches renewable energy. And she shared with me that NWTC has recently committed to reducing their carbon footprint. And it's not just words that were adopted, but there is a plan that goes with that as well, their environmental stewardship plan. And part of the plan is to have peer-to-peer staff training to educate employees on sustainable modes of transportation, of consumption, of using the buildings. You can have a beautifully designed building, but if the users in the building and the operators of the building don't know how to use that building or that vehicle correctly, then the efficiencies that they offer can be lost just because of poor training. So NWTC has this great peer-to-peer training. And through that, Jenny has experienced moments of energy eurekas where people attending can connect the dots, where the example she shared is a colleague who hadn't realized that taking shorter showers can result in energy savings. So sometimes it's just up to us to help people see what's right there in front of them. And once it's pointed out to them, they're like, oh yeah, okay. And it's easy to adopt those behavior changes. So in this very last slide here, we're gonna, together as a community, create a word cloud and create some hope among each other. So you can either text, and the directions are right there, to text my name, first name, last name, K180, or you can respond via that website, pollev.com/Samara Hamze K180. And as you're ready, you can put in your one word, what is an energy commitment you can adopt? And we'll see our cloud expand, hopefully. Thank you. Wasn't sure it was working, and now I do. Beautiful. Insulation, energize. Hope is big. That's good. Educate, learn, act. That's great, folks. So I think as we're doing this, we can also begin to take questions.
Hi, yeah. Hi, Samara. I've got a few that were sent to me in the chat. And then for anybody else who has questions, you can go throw it up in the Q&A. I'll come up here to start. So again, for everybody, if you have questions, you can throw them in the Q&A, but I got some sent to me through the chat. And the first one is, how has energy literacy education in schools changed throughout the past couple of years and improved? And where do you think we're going in the future to make this even better in our schools?
Since I'm new in this position, how it has changed is, I think, not something I can address really well, but I can definitely tell you what the future is because I'm working on that with my colleagues right now. So KEEP is working with Slipstream as well. We are working with the DPI in developing the energy careers pathways for students. So the DPI has a requirement of academic and career planning where students begin to explore careers as early as 6th grade. So we're creating those modules that students can explore energy careers. And that's why I invited you, those of you who are in the energy industry, to think about mentoring, because we're going to definitely need that as that develops. And as well, we're finding an increase in student advocacy. So students who understand the pressing need to address climate change now, and they want to see it done. So we're creating tools for them to be able to talk to to work with the decision makers in their school communities, so the school board members and administrators, so that they really can get to a place of reducing carbon footprint for their school district, as opposed to, we want this done right now, but helping them see that there's a process to doing that.
Awesome, thank you. That was such a thoughtful answer.
Thank you.
We have a few more questions coming in, but before we end, I just wanted to say that your chat storms have been getting a lot of hype and everyone really likes them. And so
good.
I think it was a great way to engage with everybody. My next question is there a calendar of programs being offered by KEEP, and what are the best ways of connecting to partners on promoting and helping with these connections?
Sure. So COVID is a problem for all of us. We have had, so on the KEEP website, so keepprogram.org, you can access the Wisconsin Center for Environmental Education's calendar. So ourselves and our forestry education partners have a shared calendar where you can find out what we have available. We have some free online modules actually available for educators to either improve or deepen their understanding of energy for taking that into the classroom. But we've also held a lot of workshops over the last semester where we have shorter 1-hour sessions and so on. So we have a YouTube channel where we have some of those videos that we've recorded that can be shared out. And we have an upcoming, I don't know when it is, but it'll be on the calendar. We have several digital resources that are available to educators. One of them is Cool Choices, which you might be familiar with from your community or your business community, which is an online game for engaging students and learning about how they interact with the world. Really, it's more of a sustainability game. So that goes through KEEP. We also can connect teachers with our partners at the Wisconsin Energy Institute for doing inroads workshops. And we have STEM Hero, which is a really fantastic and powerful online tool where students learn to read their utility meters, their water meters, gas meters, and electric meters. And in their homes or in their schools, if they don't have access to the meters because of living situations, they can learn to do that. And that also helps them begin to explore energy careers. Oh, I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Thank you.
That's okay.
And that's how it always goes. Thank you. That's such a thoughtful answer. We have time for one more question before we wrap it up. And this is kind of going off of what you were telling us about the information for teachers and people in education, but is there a family version of this curriculum that will help develop understanding of energy consumption and conservation within the home?
So I know that prior to me coming to KEEP, so I just started full-time in September of last year, there had been an exploration of doing that school community partnership where families are brought in. So that has existed at some point. I would encourage whoever was asking that question to reach out to me, and I'll share that slide in just a minute here, because we're definitely interested in that. And we've definitely learned as well through COVID that that line between home and school has been more or less erased for a lot of us. So it has fallen upon parents to become the educators. And a lot of the curriculum that we have on the KEEP website and it's right there. You can click on it and access it, download it, and read it. Can be adapted and used in a home situation as well. It's just not packaged like, here is the curriculum that you would want to use at home. I do want to say, though, we also have curated and extracted curriculum that is COVID safe to be practiced by teachers or by parents who are helping their students at home, and that's highlighted on our website, keepprogram.org as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for such a hopeful and informative talk. It's really awesome to see how inspiring you were over the last 45 minutes.
Well, thank you.
With that, we're going to end our 101 session, and you guys all have 15 minutes to take a break, and we'll see you back for our breakout sessions.
Go stretch, stand up, see the sun. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time and attention, and my information's on the screen, so please reach out. I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Bye, everybody.